Hello. Writing essays is a stressful process for many students, particularly if they've never been to college or they've been out of school for a while. It's really a smart process to develop an outline as you do your essay instead of immediately trying to do a draft. And this in itself is something that is foreign for many people. So I have created this video where we will work through a sample question and show you exactly in step-by-step form how to go through an outline. Okay, so hopefully over the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll be able to give you some tools that you can compare against your own work and your own process. Let's start off by imagining an assignment question. Pretend that you are a student in a program for physical education teachers, and your teacher gives you this question under the heading of sports and social values. We want to make sure that we pay attention to what the heading or general theme is. It's going to help guide us. Under that theme, there are 3 questions our teacher has asked us to answer. Number 1, what are some of the social benefits for people who play sports? Number 2, what are some possible disadvantages or risks of playing sports? And number 3, describe a sport that is particularly good at improving social benefits and say why. Your teacher has given you not only what they want you to answer, but they've also provided you with essentially the structure of the essay. If you can answer these 3 questions, you can write the essay. These 3 questions answered in their order will provide you with a good outline in almost any college program anywhere. So let's try it. So let's start off with answering the questions in simple point form. So the first question, what are some of the social benefits for people who play sports? Now, I might be asked to come up with the answer to these questions from my readings, from my notes, or from my own mind. And so I'm going to start writing down notes without really worrying at this point about exactly the order or perfecting them. So let's say I write down that sports help people develop a sense of fair play rules. They help us to understand sportsmanship, and they help us to develop teamwork. Now, just for the sake of this video, I've decided to keep it really simple, and that's a theme you're going to hear a lot. We could talk about other social benefits, and I could even extend these point form notes that I have here. I'm not going to do that. When I'm doing my notes or my point form, I am only putting down things that are going to mean something to me. I know what I want to say about fair play rules or what I want to say about sportsmanship when I get there. If you're concerned that you haven't said enough to remind you, then add a little bit more. But don't write out the whole essay here and just put a point in front of it. That's not an outline. Outlines look like this. Next question was, what are some possible disadvantages or risks of playing sports? And I came up with 2. People can become over-competitive, and some people feel inadequate or less than because of sport. And then a third question was, describe a sport that is particularly good at improving social benefits and say why. I chose lacrosse, and I identified 3 reasons why. It brings traditional values, it has it's a team sport, and it balances the competitiveness with a feeling of brotherhood. Great. Now I'm ready to move on to my next step. One quick thing. If I had gotten these ideas out of a book, beside them, right beside them, I would put in parentheses, or brackets for many people, the page number or the name and page number of the book where I got it. Now, I went back and looked at my list, and I thought to myself, okay, I think I can improve the order of things by emphasizing a few things or by putting them higher in the ranking. I wasn't happy with teamwork being 3rd at the end of my first part, and so I put it higher. And I noticed that team sport was down further at the bottom question as well, so I simply raised it to a higher position. I'll speak about it earlier on, and that will give the reader the impression that I consider it important. I haven't made a lot of other changes in terms of the structure. I just went back and looked at it and said, what do I want to talk about first? So that's why the 2 highlighted sections of teamwork moved up. Now I'm ready for the next thing. Let's take a look at all of my points and see if I can discover some themes. I'm going to do this because when I create my introduction and my conclusion, I want to be able to tell people, here are the main ideas or themes behind my paper. And I color-coded them here Some people use numbers. Some people circle things or highlight them by underlining. It doesn't matter. And if you chose to do your outline instead of doing it on a computer by having a bunch of post-it notes that you put in order, or by writing on chart paper, or by doing it with flashcards, that still can happen here. You can stack them based on themes, for example. So I noticed 3 themes in what I was saying. The first is teamwork, and that was in yellow. Then I noticed that in a couple of different places I was talking about things to do with treating each other fairly. So fair play rules, sportsmanship, and traditional values, in my mind, fit together. And the idea of over-competitiveness and balancing it with brotherhood went well, and I think I'll be able to connect that idea to lacrosse. So that was my 3rd theme. Now my themes will become my thesis. So I took those 3 themes, the 3 different colors, and I made brief sentences. The first one, sports can help build teamwork and a sense of fair play. The second one, sports can also help make us overly competitive. And the third one was that lacrosse is a great sport for developing values because it balances a sense of team with competitive drive. So I've got those 3 sentences as bullets, and they are pretty much in the exact order of the questions I was asked, which is simple, and simple is good. Now all I'm going to do is take out the bullet points and see if I can connect things a little bit, and you'll notice that the paragraph below the blue arrow is almost identical. Sports can help build teamwork and a sense of fair play, comma, but. So I took out the word sports here the second time and decided to say but because I thought it sounded better. But they can also make us overly competitive. Lacrosse is a great sport for developing values because it balances a sense of team with competitive drive. I just took that exact sentence and put it in there without the bullet point in front. And now I have a thesis. My opening paragraph, my opening argument are done. And you'll notice they're really simple. The structure of it is pretty much the structure of my essay, and people will have no difficulty telling what I'm going to argue in my essay. The same thing is true about the conclusion. So once I've written my thesis, the good news is I've pretty much written my conclusion. They're really almost always completely interchangeable. And you'll see that here. Here, I've simply said exactly at the top what I said in the last slide. I'll read it again. Sports can help build teamwork and a sense of fair play, but they can also make us overly competitive. Lacrosse is a great sport for developing values because it balances a sense of team with competitive drive. That was the thesis I had in the last slide. So now, if I turn that into my conclusion, I just happen to move a few words around. We can build social values such as teamwork and fair play through sport as long as we are careful not to overemphasize competitiveness. Lacrosse is an example of a sport that balances competitiveness and a sense of traditional values and teamwork. You'll notice that they're very similar, and so similar, in fact, that if I had taken the second one and made it my thesis, I could have gotten away with that and nobody would know. And that's very, very similar all the way in through all the papers you'll write. Keep it simple on both ends. You're simply introducing the big ideas and then at the end saying to people, remember the big ideas? I think I've proven them to you, and wrapping up. Now it's time to start putting it together. The next step is for us to take the questions provided by the teacher and turn them into statements. Those statements are called topic sentences, which simply means they're the first sentences in each of our sections. Instead of having headings or titles, we're going to have topic sentences. And the reader will be able to tell what you're talking about because you introduce it with this statement. Our first question is in red. What are some of the social benefits for people who play sports? That's what our teacher gave us, and we've essentially turned that into a statement. Sports can help people develop important social values, or sport in this case. What are some possible disadvantages or risks of playing sports? That was the teacher's question, and I turned it into a statement. Sport can create some negative social characteristics if we aren't careful. And then finally, the third question was describe a sport that is particularly good at improving social benefits and say why. Here I decided to say right from the beginning that I was going to talk about lacrosse. Lacrosse is a sport that is particularly good at improving social benefits. These will be the sentences that kick off each section. Then I can discuss the little points underneath them to help expand it. And here we are. We're going to flesh out the point form discussion points now. And we're again going to keep it really simple, short sentences, keep it direct, and stay on topic. Here's my new topic sentence. Sport can help develop important social values. Those are the points I wanted to expand to. Let's follow the arrow and see what I did. There's my first sentence right there. And then I took these points and I expanded on them as sentences. Sports can help people to develop a strong sense of teamwork because they require collaboration and alignment for success. I could literally check that off. Whoops. I could literally check off that word and say that I had done it. Next, sports can help us to work together with a sense of fair play. Oh, there's my second point expanded upon. Rules and sportsmanship help people learn to work through challenges and competition while remaining respectful to one another. Oh, I talked about sportsmanship and I expanded on it. Now this is just the first one of the 3 sections. I'm not going to do the other 2 just for saving time, but I think you could easily do that in each of your cases. Do not make the mistake of assuming that all 3 sections will be identical in length. They won't. Sometimes a paragraph is very short, 1 or 2 sentences. Sometimes an area needs multiple paragraphs of expansion, and that's okay. You have to use your judgment to explain a concept fully. Teachers are not trying to trick you into writing a certain number of words or trying to get it to fit all into one page. It isn't about having necessarily the exact same amount of words in each section. So take the time you need to show you fully understand the concept and to explain it clearly. And don't put a lot more than that. Put what you need and not a lot more. Now it's time to put it all together. You had a thesis before, put it at the top of your paper. Put your fleshed out discussion points, then put your conclusion. Now that you've put all those things there, check to see by reading it if everything seems connected. And if it connects well and flows well, then you've done things and you can take a break here in a minute. If you can't, you might want to go back and do some of the words that help transition things or show that these ideas are connected. If it's a bit choppy and you need help with that, see if another person can read it and give you ideas. This is called proofreading, and you should proofread your paper always, always, always. If you are not great at grammar or spelling or shortening your sentences, get somebody who is good at that to proofread for you. It can be me, or it can be somebody like Janet, our EA, but it can also be a classmate or even just somebody that you know is a good writer in your household. So give it to somebody with fresh eyes. The other thing you want to do is set it aside for your own self. If you have organized your time well, you'll be able to put it aside for 24 hours or even maybe more, and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes to see if there's a way that you can improve the paper. There are 3 common things I would encourage you to look for. The first is go through and get rid of language that doesn't need to be there. Take out words that are not helping. And make sentences simpler. If you have long, compound sentences that are difficult to follow, can you make them into shorter, much more clear sentences? Do you have sentences where the main idea is way at the end instead of at the beginning? That's an indirect or passive sentence. See if you can turn it into something more direct. For example, when we write about something, we don't write about what we want by saying it in an ambling way. If I wanted a drink of water, I wouldn't say, I think I might want a drink of water. I say, I want a drink of water. And we certainly wouldn't say, water is really a good thing for people who are thirsty. Say it directly. And add things that expand your thinking. But make sure you stay on track. So for example, you might think, I should put an example here, or I should explain the why behind this, or I should show a connection between something that I just realized I haven't clearly expressed. As long as you stay on topic, typically that expansion of your ideas is good. Make sure you know the difference between expanding and simply enlarging. Making it bigger isn't making it better. Don't, under any circumstances, just throw it all away again. Throw it all away and start again. If you have tried to skip past the outlining portion, you can still go back and do it. I've literally seen people take scissors and cut the sentences into little pieces of paper and reorganize them. Or to take the ideas and write them on Post-it notes and cards and reorganize them that way. Typically, it's about making things more organized or more clear and throwing away unnecessary stuff. But it's usually not going to help you to start all over again. And that leads me with some general, almost psychological tips that you should remember as you do it. First of all, it's very normal to start off with disorganized thinking. I've been writing essays for many years as a university student, and I can tell you that mine start off as being very messy as well. They are always about taking the messy and creating a structured, organized argument. That's normal, and that's why you have to start someplace. Don't be afraid to put something on paper and then to go back later on and experiment with it. Almost have fun with it, if you will, to be imaginative and creative and literally just play around with ideas. Nowadays, computers allow us to quickly move things around without any major hassles, and that's a good thing. Don't overthink your papers. There are 1,000 ways to say things, and it's really important just to pick one and get in a lane and do your best with it. If you are overthinking it, you're probably not making your paper better. You're probably making it more complex. Simplicity is your friend. Forgot to put the word is there, my apologies. One of the last things I'll leave you with is this. When somebody is trying to get you to think about something, trying to get you to change your mind, what would you rather read? Would you rather have a 12-page essay or a 1 or 2-page pamphlet that was organized well? If somebody's trying to convince you of something, what sways you? I'm guessing good examples, logic, and a clear structure all play a role. So think about it from the perspective of what would make sense to you as a person reading an essay. Okay? Hopefully this has been helpful to you. Try putting something down on paper and come and get help multiple places along the way so that you're getting closer in small steps and not getting intimidated by the process. Thanks, and I hope this was helpful.